Hey guys, I'm John Setzler. Welcome back to the Kamado Joe cooking channel. Today we are going to start part 3 of our Pizza 102 series, where we're looking at different types of homemade pizza doughs. And if you've been following along with me so far, the first 2 have been pretty easy. This one's going to be slightly more complicated. It's going to be the same basic recipe, but we're going to go to a 72-hour dough technique where we mix our dough, let it bulk rise for 24 hours, and then we shape it up into individual dough balls and go to the refrigerator for 2 more days with that. This is a variation of the baking steel's 72-hour dough technique, which is a variation of Jim Leahy's dough technique. My recipe is slightly different than the baking steel's, but we're going to use the baking steel's technique for this 3rd video in our series here. So let's get started. We're going to get this dough started. I'm starting out here with 500 grams of 00 flour. If you're not able to have 00 flour, I would recommend something like King Arthur's bread flour. And to that, we're going to add 14 grams of sea salt, 10 grams of sugar, and I've got 1 gram of active dry yeast. Just a small amount. That's about 1/4 teaspoon. I'm going to take my whisk and mix all that together, and then I'm going to transfer that to the bowl of my stand mixer. And to that, I'm going to add 10 grams of extra virgin olive oil, and I'm going to add my 350 grams of water. And the water today is just at room temperature. It's not warm, so I'm going to bring the mixing bowl up, and we're going to mix that on a slow speed just till it gets combined. And after that starts to come together, I'm going to raise the speed on the mixer to about a medium speed, and we're going to let the dough hook knead this for about 5 minutes. Okay, I've let that go here for 5 minutes. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the bowl off the mixer, and we're going to put that out onto a floured working surface. Okay, I've spread some flour out onto my large cutting board. I've got some flour on my hands as well. And I'm just going to scrape this dough right out of the bowl. And just like our other doughs, this is a fairly wet dough. So what we're going to do is we're going to form this into a tight dough ball, just like we've done before. I'm going to flour my hands. I'll just flip that over a couple of times to get a little flour on it. Get a little more flour on the outside. And our objective here is to make a tight dough ball. So like I've shown you before, you can spin it, and as you go you just tuck it under. Just give it a few spins like that, or you can pull it towards you and turn it 1/4 turn. I just like to pick it up and spin it, kind of fold it under. And that's really all we need here at this point. It's a nice tight dough ball just like that. And I've got a 6-quart tub here that I like to use as a dough tub, and I have sprayed this with some oil. So I'm going to pick this dough ball up, and we're going to plop it right down in the middle of that, seam side down. And I'm just going to give it a very light puff of cooking oil spray on top. And we're going to put the lid on this, and this guy is going to sit on the countertop at room temperature for 24 hours. Okay, we've been going 24 hours here, and I've got a big old fat healthy batch of dough in this 6-quart tub. So we're going to turn this out. I'm going to flour my hands, and we're going to reach in here and pull this out here onto my floured work surface. And then I'm going to toss out a little flour on top of it here. And we're going to do this one just like we do when we make a dough ball, but I need to get it prepared because we're going to split this into, you can split this into 2 equal pieces or 3. I'm going to make this into 3 equal pieces. I'm just going to use my bench knife, and we're going to cut it into rough thirds. And we're going to take each one of these and work it individually. we'll have one pizza out of each of these. I won't flour my hands. You keep good flour going here. And we're going to take each of these and make a smaller dough ball, just like the one we made to start with. We want to have a tight skin across the top of that. Do the same thing to these other two. You can pick it up and turn it in your hand and turn it in, or you can turn it on your board. And this dough, like I said, it's a 70% hydration dough, so it's fairly sticky. It takes a little practice to get used to handling this, but it's not too bad once you've done a few. So now that we've got those, I've got a couple of greased bowls here that I'm going to take these and put them seam side down in that bowl, and I'm going to hit each one of these with a little spray of olive oil cooking spray on the top, just to help them keep from forming a skin. And I'm going to put the lid on these, and each of these will go into the refrigerator for 2 days. We'll be back in about 48 hours to make pizza. Okay, we're going to get started here with the grill. I have lit a fire in the firebox of the Kamado Joe Classic here. I've put the Divide and Conquer flexible cooking rack in place with the grill in the upper position. And we're going to set up just like we always do for pizza. I'm going to set my heat deflectors up on the upper grate here, and I'm going to use my spacers that give me 1.25 inches of space. And today we're going to do something a little special. Since we're using my variation of the baking steel's dough recipe, and we're actually going to cook a baking steel pizza recipe, we're just going to go ahead and cook today on the baking steel rather than the pizza stone. This thing makes beautiful pizzas, so we're going to let this grill come up to about 500 degrees, and I'm going to do that by leaving the bottom vent fully open and the top vent about halfway open until we get close, and then I'll make whatever adjustments are necessary. Okay, I've taken one of my dough balls out of the refrigerator. Man, this looks beautiful. It's got a beautiful aroma to it also, so I'm going to let it sit out here for 60 minutes or so, maybe 90 minutes, and let it come to room temperature while we get everything else ready. This is the book I was referring to. This is Baking with Steel. This is a fantastic book. It's got a lot of great pizza recipes in it, and since we're trying to maintain kind of a baking steel theme today, I'm using their dough recipe, or my variation of their dough recipe. We're going to make this pizza that's called Naked Pesto Pizza, and I'm going to use his recipe for that, and I'm also going to use his recipe for the perfect pesto here. We're going to make this recipe from scratch, so let's put that together. Okay, we're going to mix up this perfect pesto recipe, and I started by taking whole basil leaves, about a cup of whole basil leaves, and I chopped those up, and then I minced 2 cloves of garlic, and to that we're just going to add a pinch of salt, a pinch of red pepper flakes, and about 2 tablespoons of finely grated Parmesan cheese, and then we're going to put about 2 to 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil in there, and we're just going to mix that up, and that's going to be our pesto. I may add just a little bit more olive oil to that. Maybe we'll just add a couple more, maybe another half a tablespoon or so, and I'm going to stir that up. And this needs to be used right away. You don't want to let this sit around too long, but this is what's going to go on our pizza, so I'm just going to set this aside until we're ready for it. Okay, I've got my floured work surface together, so I'm going to get a little flour on my hands, and we're going to roll this dough out here, and we're going to shape it into a pizza just like we've been doing before. Going to kind of get our ball, put a little flour on top, and we're going to punch it out. And then we're just going to pick it up, grab it by the edges and turn it, and kind of let gravity do the work. And that's about where we need to be. So we're going to transfer that onto our wooden pizza peel. I'm going to hit my wooden peel with some semolina flour, and then we're going to transfer this dough to this wooden peel. And we'll kind of spread it back out. And then we're going to make sure that it'll slide. You just want to shake it and make sure it's going to slide on there, and it does. So that's looking pretty good. I'm going to try to stretch this out just a little bit more. And now that I have it stretched out, we're going to drizzle the top of this thing with just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. And then we'll come to the final step here, which is kind of unique for this. We're going to put a few ice cubes right in the middle of this dough, and we're going to take this and put it on the grill. Okay, we're cruising along right at 500 degrees here, so I'm going to open this guy up and we're going to slide this on here. Try not to lose our ice cubes in the process. We probably should have put the ice cubes on after we launched that, so we're going to let that guy cook, and we'll be back in just a few minutes to have a look. Okay, we've been going about 4 minutes or so here, so I want to crack this guy open, and we want to give this guy a little turn. Actually, I'm going to ditch a little bit of that water. I think we're good to go on that, and put that guy right back on here. The purpose of the water is to keep the center of the pizza from overcooking while we cook the rest of it. Okay, we've been going about 8 minutes here. So now I'm going to take this off, and we're going to put that pesto on. I'm going to take that pesto sauce we made, and we're going to spread it out on this pizza. Oh man, I wish you could smell. That smells beautiful. There's a little bit more left in here. I'm gonna try to get it on. And now we're just gonna put that pizza back on for about another minute or two. I'm gonna slip that right back here on the stone and give it another minute or two. Okay guys, this pizza is done. I'm gonna take that off. Man, that's amazing. Let's take it inside. Okay guys, I've let this thing cool for just a couple of minutes, and I've cut this apart, and man, that looks amazing. Would you look at that? Check that out. Bottom crust. Excellent bottom crust. Nice, crisp. Let's give this a try. Okay guys, let's see what it tastes like. Man, that's amazing. That perfect pesto recipe, all that fresh basil, the fresh garlic, wow, that is amazing. It's just an overpowering flavor of freshness on here. The crust, which is the star of our show today, based on what we're doing here, has a beautifully deeper flavor, a more profound, trying to come up with the word here, a deeper depth of flavor, if that makes any sense, from the longer ferment process. That 3-day ferment, 2 days in the fridge, makes a difference. It just goes to show that time is an important ingredient when you want to make great pizza. So we're going to wrap this one up here. You got to give this technique a try. This pizza dough has some options. You can after that first 24-hour bulk ferment, you can make pizza from there. You can make that from right at that point. You can ferment it for an additional 24 hours in the refrigerator, or an additional 48. The longer you let it go up to a certain point, the better it's going to be. So give this technique a try. Let me know what you think. Join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Kamado Joe. Follow us on Twitter @Kamado Joe. And until next time, this is John Setzler with Kamado Joe Cooking Channel.